here's our agenda for today. We've got the welcome. So good morning. Welcome, everyone, to meeting number 297 of TMG, the Mac Group. Thank you for coming out. We'll do a news item. We're not going to try and do freebie, wanted, and for sale. We'll do a short help desk. We're not going to try and do a raffle. We're not going to do a meeting intermission. We will do a presentation and we will do an adjournment. All right, so hopefully everybody's okay with that. I'm going to start with item number 1, which is news. At this point, we do need to unmute everybody because if they've got news items, they're going to provide. So first thing I'm going to share is we got an email from Don Bennett. And Don Bennett, as you know, is our liaison with Good Shepherd Lutheran Church. He's also a youth minister over there. Also, really, he knows stuff I don't know. I'll just put it that way about computers from when he was an installer for fiber optic systems. Anyway, but what he said is that certain select groups that have a long-term relationship with the church will be allowed to start having meetings at the church in October, but you got to follow their guidelines. So that's all good news. The bad news is they haven't figured out their guidelines yet. So they're making it up as they go, just like the rest of us. So we'll have some information about what we're going to be doing in October. It might be possible we're going to do a hybrid meeting in October, where we have some people actually physically at the church and other people coming in via Zoom. So just sharing that with you. Another thing that I want to share with everybody is I'm going to try something experimental, probably not next week, but the week following, where I'm going to pick a day of the week and at lunchtime I'll be hosting a short Zoom meeting. It'll have no agenda, it'll be open forum, open question, and I'll probably be Zooming from my basement with the huge racks of old, legacy mature technology. So to be sort of like office hours. So Bill Herrick, president, having an office hour every week where you can connect with me if you've got questions and whatever. So much more convenient than trying to find the right time to call me on the phone or the right time that we can, FaceTime or whatever, just a set time. And I'll be sending out an email to the membership about how I'm going to do that. And again, not next week, but probably the week following. And with that said, the only other piece of information I've got is that Apple, since our last meeting, Apple has released a new iMac. It's an Intel-based iMac, and it's the 27-inch iMac 2020, and I bought one. So it's the first new Mac I've bought since 2011. And with that said, I'm going to shut up and say to the members, do any of the members have things that they want to, news items that they want to share with the other members?
I have one item.
Yes, sir.
There was I saw this in the news this morning, and I think I sent it to you, but there is there's some folks out there, the bad people that kind of try to get you to do something bad.
Yep.
They claim to be the coronavirus police, and they tell you that you've been fined for violating certain rules, and they have a very official looking government address that they just want to get money out of you for your fine for breaking rules. So just be mindful of it. It was on The Verge if you want to find it, but I just found it interesting that scammers have now even tried to scam.
Okay, I had one this week where they call you on the phone and leave a message. They said they were Apple, and that my Apple account was being suspended unless I immediately called this extension. Now, I was thinking, how can they make money doing this? Well, it turns out that number you're dialing is one of these where they bill you by the minute. Okay, so if you call the number, they're going to sort of put the elevator music on and try and keep you online as long as possible because they're making money every minute you're connected. And then it gets billed to you on your regular phone bill. The other one that I've seen, this is a scam not related to technology, but received in the US mail a request it was not from the Board of Election, it was not from the Ohio Secretary of State, it was from some other organization where they wanted to assist me in filing for an absentee ballot. And apparently what they do here is they want to harvest your signature and other information about you. So it looks like it's from the Board of Ed, but it isn't. And they want to know your social security number, your date of birth, mother's maiden name. Gee, I wonder why they would want to know all that kind of stuff. So just be aware of that. That one is actually coming through the Postal Service. Okay, anybody else got anything they want to share?
I believe Apple announced a new iPhone announcement is coming out in October.
Next Tuesday. There's
Okay.
a big event on Tuesday at 1 o'clock Eastern time.
Shauna, I don't know if you're aware of this, but whenever I give a presentation in September, Apple always schedules some sort of reveal meeting like 2 or 3 days later.
Right.
So I think it's Monday or Tuesday next week they're doing the reveal. And they haven't really said whether it's phone, watch, tablet, new computer or what, but I believe
It'll be iPad and watches. 2 new watches and new iPad.
Is that your guess, Rick, or you got inside info?
I got inside info. Called me.
Cool. Cool. Okay, anybody else have anything to share?
Tyler, do you reuse your syringes? Do you clean those? We use them enough
Shauna?
where
I'm gonna mute him.
it doesn't
Yeah.
say to clean them. However,
Hey, Shauna,
Yes.
move your microphone a little farther away from your mouth. You're a little over-modulated.
disposable items to us.
Okay, so who else do we have? Anybody else have anything to share?
Kathy.
Bill Howe was talking on the phone and I can hear, there you go.
At some way,
That didn't do it.
Somebody else is talking. I'll mute all here in a second.
Yeah, Bill's muted.
I just muted him.
Okay, shout out to Pandy, shout out to Dell. Oh, don't mute Dell yet. Dell, do you know if Good Shepherd has their guidelines yet for groups that are going to be able to use the fellowship hall?
I'm sorry, but I don't think we have the answer yet.
Okay, that's cool.
We'll have the air conditioning turned on whenever they say go. It'll be cool.
Okay. All right. So anyway, if nobody else has any news items, I'm going to ask Rick to mute everybody except himself and myself.
You'll have to unmute yourself after I mute you. So just be ready.
Okay, cool. Do it. Okay, help desk. I knew there was something that I was going to not enjoy. Anybody have a help desk question? I see Vic and Kathy Bean. If you could unmute them, Rick.
We're unmuted. Rick, Bill, I'm going to be needing, I have an iPhone 6. My iPad's getting pretty ancient, but I understand with the new chip and everything, is that going to be, is that going to be in them? Should I wait? I know you were talking earlier to Kathy and said if you could wait like 18 months or so before you buy some, which I can do. I'm not.
Okay.
Is
So
that just for a computer, or would that affect the iPhones and the
the
iPad?
Apple Silicon is going to be for the Macintoshes.
Okay.
The mobile devices, and I don't want to name them all, but it's the iPhone, blah, 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 all the iPhone and the watch and all that other stuff, are already using Apple Silicon. So there's, if you need a new phone and you want to go Apple, then you should just go ahead and buy one that's appropriate to your needs. With that said, as Shauna had mentioned earlier, there's, and Rick did too, later on this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday or something, Apple's got another one of their special events where they're going to announce something new. So it might be new phones, it might be new whatever. I don't want to say I'm cheap, but I'm value aware. When I bought my iPhone, my first iPhone this year, I went with the iPhone SE 2020. It had the form factor of an iPhone 8, but it had the guts of an iPhone 11. And I found it to be a very, very nice device at the $350, $400 price point.
That's a good idea.
Okay, and
Well, too.
because I didn't want to lay out all the money at once, we've got it where they're charging us like 20, 30 bucks a month extra on the phone bill every month. So I don't want you to follow me over the cliff, because you're not lemmings, you're intelligent, bright people that I enjoy interacting with every month. But in this case, it was my wife doing the cost value analysis. And as an economist, she's pretty good at allocating resources appropriately. So with that said, did I come close to answering your question?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Mute them. Anybody else have a help desk situation they want to put before the members? And I'm looking, I'm not seeing anybody raising a hand. So I'm going to say we're done with, we got a Dan Duncan. Rick, can you unmute?
I unmuted myself. I think that worked. Could you somehow send out the information on that phone that you got? Okay. I didn't quite get that. If you could, it could be printed in the information sent by the after the meeting.
Yeah, well, I'll just say it again. It's an iPhone SE 2020. So it's the SE phone that came out in 2020. Now, granted, 2020 is not the greatest year to be associated with, but, you know. Okay.
Hey, Bill?
Yes, sir.
Just a heads up on the iPad stuff. I think their inventory is pretty much depleted because a friend of Dr. Bean and myself, Frank Heath, he's ordered one and he's not getting delivery till October sometime. So I think they're waiting to ship the new ones. So it could be a month or 6 weeks for you to get it.
Are we talking iPhone or iPad?
iPads.
Okay.
My sister-in-law bought an iPad Pro, and she had to wait like 5 weeks. And so deliveries on all iPads, everything is really slow right now because they're behind all their production.
Okay, well, I ordered one of the 2020 Imac 27-inch, the new one that they announced. It was supposed to come sometime next week. It showed up Wednesday this week.
That's good.
Mine took 3 weeks to come from Ireland.
Okay, mine came from China.
Yeah, mine was built in Ireland.
Okay.
Mine came from Mars.
Depends on if you customized the order or did you just buy it already?
The answer is I was customizing the order.
So was mine.
Interesting.
Now, Bill, did you get the 16 gigs of memory for the video card?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, so did I. I don't know what else could have been different.
I didn't go with the nano coating. That was, I didn't
Neither
see.
did I.
Okay, with that said, who else had the question? Let's do Lenore first. Lenore.
Very quick. I have an iPhone 8 and it more than occasionally freezes and I have to turn it off and reboot. Is that something that other people have experienced?
Can I respond to that, Bill?
Yes, sir.
I have seen that, but not just on the iPhone 8. If you can do you know how to do the restart where you hold the power button and you hold the top button and wait 10 seconds?
No.
If you send me an email, I'll send you some information on how you do that. You should try that, and you may also have to do a complete reset, and I can tell you how to do that as well. But
Good.
one of those two things will probably fix it. There's also an update coming out in the next 2 weeks that when you do that, it might fix it as well. But if you send me an email, I'll send you some information on how to do a reset.
Okay. Thank you, Rick.
Okay, John Scott Coe, if you could unmute yourself. Okay.
This question is for anybody that might have experienced this. I was forced to buy a new iPhone back at the beginning of this year because my 5S kind of rolled over and died. So I have an 11, and I have noticed and been told by several people that when I'm talking to them, especially when I'm using the headset, that sometimes the audio just gets very, not muted, but the volume goes down and it changes. And it's happened a number of times, more than I would think would be just a fluke. So if anybody has had issues, I haven't even attempted to go back to the Apple store, but for the price of an iPhone 11, which I guess I pay on for the next 30 or 40 years, it seems like it's a little bit odd that I should be having these issues.
Are you using a wireless unit to your head when you do that, or are you talking on the phone?
No, it's a wired. It's the plug-in version.
You might try a different one. And
Yeah.
What's the brand?
Yeah. What brand is it?
Well, it's the Apple headset. Just it kind of looks like what Bill Howe's wearing, but it's the plug-in version, not with the iPhone 11 went to the what is that? The new connector that they've got. They've got everything. They don't have a separate connector now for the headset. It's on the lightning connector or whatever it is.
Yes.
So I don't know if there's an issue with that maybe Apple's had with those, but like I said, this has occurred more than just a couple of times.
Do you have a can of compressed air?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that.
Sometimes that little lightning port will fill up with pocket land or whatever and impair the proper connection. So maybe give that a good, blow it out, or just use your breath and blow it out. See if that helps.
Okay, well, that's a good suggestion. Hadn't thought about that, but
yeah, it's a real catch-all for pocket dust.
Okay, yep, yeah, because I when I got it, it's in my pocket, so I'll give that a try.
I'm not saying that'll do it, but I've had connection problems because of that.
I got a list of some other ideas too. I'll just email it to you and you can try it. The list try his thing first, but if that don't work, this will give you some other things you can try. I'll email it to you.
Okay, thanks, Rick.
Okay, who else? Anybody else? Oh, the beans want a second try at the apple.
There's two of us, we get more time. Okay, my iPad, now I will admit, I've probably been using it a little more, playing more games, but it gets hot. Is this a bad thing? I assume it's a bad thing.
Are you using it on your lap all the time?
No, I usually hold it.
Okay.
I
Is
usually.
it in a case?
Is it in a case? Yeah, is it in a case?
Yeah, it's in a case.
Okay.
Yeah, that looks like one of the plastic wraparound cases.
It's
Yeah, it is.
yeah. Well, I don't
Yeah,
know. The plastic.
that doesn't promote heat loss through the metal. So it's like I've got an iPhone and it's got one of those plastic cases on it. And if I'm doing a lot of stuff with this iPhone, I will take the case off so that it can cool a little bit more efficiently.
Is there a kind of case that I can buy that would help it keep cooler or not? I want it to be safe.
Try taking it out of the case completely and use it and see if it still does the heat problem.
Okay.
That way you can isolate it if it's the case causing it or not. If it's overheating, how old is your iPad?
It's older, 17, I think.
Okay. Sometimes when the batteries start to fail, they'll start to overheat.
That's what
Like the old iBooks, the batteries would tend to swell when they started getting old. But yeah, try it without the case and then see if it still gets hot.
Okay, thanks.
And if it does, get something metal, a flat metal piece that could use as a heat sink. And that'll help dissipate the heat.
I'm sorry, do you mean get a metal case for it?
No, just put it on
sheet.
like a cookie sheet and see if that dissipates the heat.
Put it on a cookie sheet. That sounds good.
Yeah, especially
Just
one
don't
of the
put it in the
insulated
oven,
ones.
huh?
Yeah,
Right.
don't cook it.
A cool, cold cookie sheet.
Yes.
And you don't have to grease it or put wax paper on it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Ray Rainford, please.
Bill,
Unmute.
Bill,
Ray, unmute yourself.
me?
There are two people talking at the same time. Does anybody have experience with the Elgato ITV device? And the question is it common for the device itself that's between your computer and its antenna or video feed, for that thing to get hot, very hot to the touch? Won't burn you, but you think it will.
Are you using the original Elgato software with it or the people that now own that?
No, I'm using the new ITV4.
Okay.
But I'm using the original hardware.
Yeah. I've never had the experience of the unit, the dongle getting hot.
Okay.
But the one I have is like a small dongle. It's not a box. They make one that looks more like a box.
No, this isn't. In fact, I think they call it a stick once in a while.
Okay, so it looks like almost like a big old style flash drive.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. No, I haven't had problems like that.
Okay, I'll have to look into that. And then the other side of the question, this might be for Rick. I have an Apple Watch, and every so often lately, and I think it started with the last upgrade to the system, is it zooms in on itself, and the only way to see what you're doing again is to reboot the watch. But it becomes unusable. There's no, it will not obey any command except reboot it. What
Wow,
about that, Rick?
I have never seen that. I'd love to see that.
Okay.
I've never seen that. I don't have an explanation for that. I don't know. I would probably talk to somebody. I'd probably call Apple Care, but I've never seen that.
I have. I think it has something to do with the latest update. It happens maybe once every 2 or 3 days, and there's absolutely nothing you can attribute it to. I just raised my wrist the other day to look at the watch, as you can see I'm doing now, and it was worthless, so I had to reboot it. It reboots pretty quick, but still a problem. And I've talked to Apple about it already. So
You could always do a restart and erase and restart. You know, if you go into, on the watch, if you go into general settings, reset and erase data, I think it is, then it'll actually start it from scratch. You'll have to repair it. But sometimes that repairing, I've had this happen before where I had to repair it to completely fix some kind of really obnoxious problem. You don't lose your, it'll recall your data. You can restore it, make sure you do a backup first, but you can restore all your data and just do a reboot from from an iCloud backup. That's probably what I would try if I was doing it myself.
I'm trying to get used to looking at you instead of down at the screen. So that's a good thing. I notice some people, all you see is their nose or their right eye or something like that. And then others are very, very nice. In my case, I'm looking at myself on the screen and I got my head tilted up. So I'm looking down at my screen through my bifocal.
I don't have mine on, but if I had them on, I'd have my head tilted up.
What I've been searching for is a tiny camera that I could put right in the center of my screen that wouldn't block much. But when I'm looking at you, I'd be looking at the camera at the same time, or close enough that you wouldn't think I'm, had too much to drink. That's interesting. Is your boat moving up and down? My boat is just, I don't know what to do about it.
Screen back.
Okay.
We're good.
You've helped me.
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna mute myself.
I'm going to mute everybody, Bill, if you're ready. Is there anybody else?
Okay, we're coming up at 10:28. I'm going to say help desk is over, and I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation. So let me get, and hopefully everybody can see it. Rick, are you seeing a presentation? Okay, I got a thumbs up. All right, let me just make sure I got my control. Yep, okay, I'm good to go. Now let me just get this other little thing out of the way here. Okay. Okay, good morning. Today's topic is Apple Silicon. Transition from Intel to ARM processors, who, what, where, when, why, how, and all that other good stuff that journalists used to do and don't seem to know how to do anymore. And there we go. Okay, and we're on presenter William Herrick, president at tmgdayton.org. If you have questions later on, when you remember, and you want to send me questions, please use the president at tmgdayton.org thing. Mute your devices. Wow, that's like pre-Zoom. Don't have to do that anymore. Okay, so at the Worldwide Developer Conference, Tim Cook, Chief Executive Officer of Apple, started talking about this thing called Apple Silicon and how they were going to take their Macintoshes, so that's the iMac Pro, the iMac, the Mac Minis, and the laptops, notebooks, your MacBook Pro, your Mac Air, all of that stuff, and they were going to be putting a different processor in them, something that Tim Cook called Apple Silicon. Now, one of the things that was very interesting in his presentation is at no point did he mention any other company. So this is a Apple thing. So question that should come to mind is, what is Apple Silicon? They are Apple-designed processor chips, what are called system-on-chip, SoCs, or system-in-package, SIP, processors. They use the ARM architecture. So you've got Intel, you've got AMD, they use the x86 architecture for the program instruction set for the chip. ARM uses its own architecture separate from that of IBM and AMD. And then you've got AMD and Intel. Then you've got IBM, which makes the PowerPC chips. That uses another architecture. So this is going to be ARM chips. They're the basis right now of the Apple iPhone, the iPad, the watch platforms, and products such as the HomePod, iPod Touch, Apple TV. So this is something that Apple's been using for quite a while. They also have an SoC called the Apple H1, which is in the AirPods, those little wireless headphones. And although Apple outsources all of its manufacturing, including that of its own SoCs, it designs the processor chips in-house. And they fully control their integration across the company's hardware and software. In other words, the stuff that Apple designs is made to work specifically with their operating systems and with their hardware. Last but not least, Johnny Srouji, and I know I killed the guy's name. This is the executive in charge of Apple's Silicon design. This is probably the most important guy in the company right now, because he's the magician behind all of the Apple Silicon magic that's happening in now and is going to happen over the next decade. So let's just talk about this for a little bit. We get a little bit of past prologue. The prologue, you know, the past gives us a clue to what's going to happen in the future. So Apple's no stranger to sweeping changes. 1984, the first Macintosh using the Motorola 68000 CPU. They basically were kicking to the curb all of the stuff they had done before. The Apple I, the Apple II, the Apple IIe, the 2C, the 3, all of that stuff, the GS, going to a whole new platform. In 1994, they switched to the IBM powered PC chip. So they were taking the Motorola chip, saying, hey, that goes to the trash bin of history. We're going to go with IBM powered PC chips now. In 2001, they kicked Mac OS 9 to the curb and came out with a new operating system called Mac OS X. 2005, they kicked PowerPC chips to the curb, switched to Intel x86 processors. 2016, they didn't really kick Mac OS X to the curb. They gave it a new name, but they were doing some subtle stuff in there. The things we were seeing in terms of applications on our Macs were looking more and more like the applications, the apps that were running on the phones and their iPads and the watches. And then we come to 2020, Mac switching to what they call Apple Silicon. These are ARM architecture system on chips. Okay, so the transition to ARM-based Macs from Intel-based Macs is going to take place over the next 2 years, Cook said, adding that Apple still has new Intel-based Macs in the pipeline. And the machine I just bought is one of those newer Intel-based Macs that they had in the pipeline. He also described the transition as a game changer for Apple. And last but not least, he said the challenge is similar to the company's prior transition away from PowerPC to Intel's Core 2 processors, but it's more significant than that change. Okay, that was a pretty big change they made. And he's saying, hey, pay attention to this. This is even more important, more significant. Okay, so why is this transition more significant? All right, well, let's look at how they were doing it before. So you had IBM, PowerPC chip, Intel, x86 chip, and then you got AMD. They make another x86 family chip. With all three of these companies, they design it, they manufacture it, and they market their chips. But they sell you what they have in their product line. Okay, listen to that again. So if I go to IBM and then say, hey, I want some chips for this computer I'm making, they're going to sell me basically what they've already got and that they're selling to Dell and to Lenovo and to, you know, all the other people that are making computers. They sell you what they already have in their product line. Okay, so let's go back to 2005. Steve Jobs, he was still alive back then, he approached Intel and he wanted them to produce a customized processor for this new product he was coming out with called the iPhone. Intel said, not going to do it, because they felt this customized chip would be too small of an order to be profitable or worth the effort of their design team. Okay, so Intel is telling Steve Jobs no. And you know how Steve Jobs would react to when people said no, can't be done. He still went ahead with the iPhone, but the first three iPhone models used somebody else's large-scale production non-customized chips. Apple has never revealed who they used. Chances are it was Qualcomm. So fast forward a couple years, you got Qualcomm suing Apple because of proprietary technology that's being used in current iPhones. Chances are it comes from these original chips that they were using. But that fourth iPhone was produced with something different, an Apple-designed ARM system on a chip that was customized for iOS and Apple hardware, designed by Apple, and then Apple farmed out the manufacturing of those chips. Okay, so let's continue on to why this transition is significant. So you've got these Apple-designed ARM-based system on a chips that are being used in all of these iPhones and iPads, et cetera. And Apple's got the people that are designing these. This is all being done in-house. So now what they're doing is they're going to take that design team and have them design chips that will be specifically meant for their Macintosh computers. So the use of Apple Silicon SoCs in the Mac is going to mean total design control. Apple needs customized chips for their Macintoshes. It's going to mean better cost control. It's going to cost them less money to do it this way. It also means a more robust supply line, since Apple contracts out the manufacture of these chips to several vendors. It means they don't have to wait on IBM to finally go from 10 nanometer chips to 7 nanometer chips, something that IBM really flubbed. They said they were going to be done by 2015. 2015 came, then they said 2016, then they said 2017. It wasn't until late 2018, early 2019 that they finally got there. And then the other thing is these chips, these Apple SoCs, Apple Silicon, use less energy and they produce less heat. So think about it. Have you ever seen a fan on an iPhone or an iPad? If you got a MacBook Pro, you got a MacBook Air, those typically have fans that are going to be blowing air through to cool off that Intel processor. If they go with these Apple Silicons in their notebooks, that means that they don't necessarily need those fans, which means that those notebooks will be able to run longer on the same battery charge. And then last but not least, applications will run on a common ARM architecture across all the Apple devices. In other words, you've got the same instruction set being used in your Macintoshes, as your iPads, as your iPhones, as your watches, etc., which means that when you're writing a program, you can use the same development tools to basically pop out 5 different versions of that application. One for an iMac, one for a notebook, one for an iPhone, another one for the iPad. So it's the same app, and you basically just say, hey, run it through and say, fix it so it runs on this, which means that we're going to see more and more convergence between Mac OS, iOS, iPad OS, Watch OS, Apple TV OS, et cetera, across devices, which means that there's going to be less discontinuity of interface. So if you're using an app on your phone and you use it on your iMac, it's going to work pretty much the same way. Okay. So that's why this is really a very historic day. It's a huge leap forward for the Mac. So in this little graphic, they got the powered PC chip, and then they went to Intel and Mac OS. It would have been nice if they had had a Mac OS graphic in between the Intel and the Apple Silicon, because Mac OS is going to significantly change over the next 2-year period. Now, they committed to have their first system, this running Apple Silicon, by the end of the year. When I watched this, I went, how the heck are they going to do that? Well, this is the secret sauce that they've got going. First, Apple Silicon has been used in their mobile devices since 2010. So they got 10 years of experience designing these chips. They know what to do. They know what not to do. They've got that part down pat. This is something I didn't realize, that next operating system that's going to come out late 2020, late October, November, somewhere around in there. It's called Big Sur. It already supports Apple Silicon Mac. So they've already got the operating system for these ready to go. And then last but not least, developer tools for migrating applications to Apple Silicon. All right, so you've got these small, insignificant companies like Microsoft and Adobe. They already have all of these programs that are written to run on an IBM processor or on an Intel processor or an AMD processor. They don't necessarily have their programs set to run on the ARM architecture. So Apple has provided them with these developmental tools to help with that transition so that you can take something like Creative Suite from Adobe that's running on these Intel processors and be able to transmogrify them into something that'll run on an ARM processor. That's what's called the Universal 2 application. That's that first graphic, the one that's got the yin-yang symbol on it. And then they also have virtualization, which is another process where you could have your older programs run, right? And then be able to produce a new product from that. And then last but not least, they've got this other thing in their toolbox. It's called Rosetta 2. For those of you who have been using Macintoshes back in the day when we were on PowerPC, they had a piece of software when Snow Leopard came out. It was called Rosetta. It allowed Snow Leopard and Lion, and then later on Mountain Lion, to run PowerPC programs on an Intel processor. Well, Rosetta 2 will allow Intel programs to run on an ARM processor. So even if the vendor, the developer of the software, hasn't gotten their act together and produced an ARM version of the application, for a limited period of time, you'll be able to use the Rosetta to have those things still run on an ARM processor. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to stop share and say, hey, we're going to do question time. And I'm going to say stop share. And I'm going to let folks raise their hands to ask questions. Hopefully I didn't put you all asleep. Oh, okay. John Scott, go.
Okay, I assume I'm unmuted.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm a primetime candidate since I have a 2011 iMac
Okay.
that is about to get a lot of arthritis and everything else due to the fact I can't upgrade the OS anymore. So I'm probably going to be in the market for an iMac this year. And what would make sense for me to look at with all this ARM stuff in the shadows?
Okay, so this is my take on it. And Mark and Mark Georges, Rick, Bill Howe, if you've got a different view, feel free to interrupt me. But this is how I approach it. If I need a new computer now, I just go ahead and buy a new computer, okay? In this particular instance, you know, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I just bought one of these new iMacs that has an Intel chip in it. It's sitting in my front hall, and after I get off of the meeting here, I'm gonna open that box and fire that beautiful new machine up. I've been holding off until after the meeting was over.
I'm using mine right now, and I don't know if the video is any better or not, but supposedly it's got a 1080 video camera in it now.
Now, Mark, you were replacing what year of a iMac?
It was a fairly new one. It was a 2017, but my son needed a computer, so he got it willed to him.
Okay. See, mine was a 2011, so it's been 9 years since I bought a new machine. Yeah. Has anybody else put in an order for a new machine lately?
Got a 2012 that I have to replace, and I'm waiting to see what they're going to do first. We don't know the sequence of what they're going to launch. I'm a little bit of a risk taker, so I probably will wait for Apple Silicon. But it depends on what the, you know, we don't know what's going to be first. The rumors are that it's going to be a 12-inch device first, yeah, in a MacBook Air format, but don't know.
Question for you, Rick. Does your 2012 iMac, will it run Big Sur?
No, that's one of the motivations.
Okay.
Yeah, 2012 is the cutoff for Big Sur.
Yep.
Right.
Yep, I just barely miss it. So that's part of my thinking is why I'm going to update. I'm just waiting to see what they do before I make a decision on what to do.
Now, the box that they shipped out to developers that's got Apple Silicon in it, the form factor they shipped out was a Mac Mini.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm thinking on the basis of what they were shipping out that they're probably going to go towards the more mobile Macs, smaller form factors. So maybe a MacBook 12-inch, the MacBook may come back again, maybe a MacBook Air. But anything where it's really small, really thin, and they really got to get better battery life in them. So I'm thinking it's probably going to be the iMacs are probably going to be later in the chain that get moved to Apple Silicon. And that Mac Pro, that 50,000, well, depends on how you have it configured, $30,000 to $50,000 computer, I think that's probably going to be the last one that they convert over, if ever.
I agree.
Oh, darn, I was gonna buy 3 of those.
Mortgage your house.
Well, you know, you got
One, hey, when you buy a new iMac, my suggestion is that you get as much RAM and as much hard drive space as you can afford. You can make up the difference between the processor speeds with more RAM, but you know, get as much now, because if they're anything like the laptops, there's no user or serviceable parts available to do anything with. So get as much as you can when you can.
Bill,
yeah,
the 21-inch iMacs, what you buy is what you get. But the 27-inch, you've got a door on the back where you can add more RAM.
Okay.
And
Now,
but
usually you have to
know Apple charges way too much for their RAM.
Sure. Yeah,
And they
Mac
also
sales
did
is,
away with the Fusion drive.
yeah,
All the new iMacs have SSDs in them.
yeah.
They're not
So-
easily switched out.
Get as large SSD as you can afford and as much RAM as you can get. And because sometimes you have to take the RAM out that's in there and throw it away because, you know, you got to make space for the new larger chips. So get as much as you can.
The 27-inch iMac, the new one, it's got 4 RAM ports on it.
Okay. Does it come with 2 filled then?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And they have to run in pairs, right?
No.
Oh, they don't. Okay.
Mark, you want to tell people what you did with the one that you just bought and where you got your RAM in that?
The RAM I bought, I just bought from Amazon. It's certified RAM. It's a high-NIC or something like that. I forget exactly what the brand is. But I bought a single 32 gig chip and put in one of the slots. So that gave me a total of 40 gig.
Oh, good.
So I've got a slot open. I can put another 32 gig in.
Okay, because I remember some of those things used to have to go in pairs.
Right.
So that's good that they've done that.
I just want to repeat one more time, the 21-inch iMac, you don't have that ability of adding more RAM through a little door on the back of the case.
Okay.
So if you're buying a 21-inch, you do exactly what Bill House said. You buy it with as much RAM as you think you're going to need now and in the future, because what you buy is what you're stuck with.
Yeah.
If you go with 27-inch, you can add more RAM.
Yeah,
you can never have
not
too
buy
much
the
RAM.
from Apple. 27-inch. Get the minimum amount of RAM and then go to OWC or another vendor to get you additional RAM.
Yeah.
Very easy to put in.
Yeah, Bill, I'm not pressed to buy one in the next few weeks or even the next month or 2, but by income tax season of next year, I'm going to need something. So I'd really like to go with the ARM if I could, rather than the Intel. But
let me just add this other thing to confound you. When they did the switch from PowerPC chips to Intel chips, they said it was going to take a minimum of 2 years. They did it in a little bit over a year, moving the entire line up over. I suspect they're going to do the same thing with Apple Silicon. They're giving themselves, breathing room. But I would suspect that by this time next year, the typical consumer Macintoshes will be converted over to Apple Silicon.
One other thing you might consider is getting a fairly good high-end MacBook Pro and get an external monitor there where you got your choice of, you know, you working at a desk or taking the laptop with you.
Oh, okay. That's a good point.
Because if you're ever going to travel and you want to take your computer with you, it's kind of hard to box up the iMac and carry it around.
Something else that is not evident right now is the Mac Mini that's got the new silicon in it does not have a Thunderbolt port on it.
What's it got?
Well, it's got the USB 3.
There was licensing issues with Intel. They have now been worked out. So according to Apple, they will have LightPeak, aka Thunderbolt, technology in these Apple Silicon Macs.
Yeah.
They will have Thunderbolt.
Bill, what do you think will happen with the video? Will Apple integrate the video into their silicon, or will they still do AMD and NVIDIA?
When it's called an SoC, system on chip, they're not kidding about it. So in the same way that AMD with their Ryzen chips have the graphic cores in the central processing unit, I'm pretty sure that's where Apple's going to go.
I think so too.
Yeah, I would remind those of you who have had problems with failures of graphic chips in their Macs. It's always somebody else's chip that wasn't designed by Apple that seems to fail.
Bill, did your 2011 iMac ever have the video card go out?
I've had a 2010 where it went out, and I've had customers with 2010 and some early 2011s where that video chip has gone out. And well, you know, I see Rita Sheets is falling asleep, but Rita remembers that one big iMac that we had to recycle because it went out. I think that was a 2010 iMac, 27 inch. And it's really hurts to have to replace something that's so good because of one little design feature in a chip that wasn't under Apple's control.
Yeah. One other thing to consider with the laptop and external monitor is to get a good quality hub so you can plug all your stuff into it.
Bill, what do you think about the hubs I've seen where they've got an on-off switch for the various ports? So
I don't know. Is it a physical switch?
Yeah.
I've got it.
It seems like one more thing to go wrong.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Yeah. Anytime you've got those switches, there again, you've got somebody else's part, and you know, it's nice. But if they're, you know, if they'll last, but anything physically you have to do to electronics is, you know, apt to fail.
So do you have a particular brand that you prefer in terms of your hubs?
At work, we've bought a couple from Mac Sales. I'm not sure exactly which brand it is. I don't remember, but Mac Sales has always got a good selection of those kind of hubs. And they run their warehouse sale every once in a while, and they get a pretty good deal. You get them under a couple $100.
Yeah. They're also called Otherworld Computing.
Yes.
So they go under both names.
Yeah, it's macsales.com, but it's Otherworld Computing. Yeah. And you can get RAM there, and you can get used iMacs and used computers and all kinds of hard drives.
They got good monitors too.
Yeah, they do.
So did anyone else have a question about Apple Silicon, the presentation? Going once, going twice. Lenore. Unmute yourself first, dear.
Thank you. What does ARM stand for? I missed that.
ARM is a company.
Oh.
Okay. They're the ones who developed this other architecture.
So ARM doesn't mean anything?
ARM. Okay. It's an acronym. I don't remember what the acronym stands for.
Okay, thank you.
But the PowerPC chips that IBM made, that Apple used, were RISC architecture chips, reduced instruction set chips. Intel makes CISC, C-I-S-C, complex instruction set chips. ARM are RISC chips, reduced instruction set chips. Now, I'm going to add one other thing. Periodically, during the year, I've talked about my Raspberry Pis, these little single board computers that have got 8 gig of RAM and quad core processors. Those are ARM chips that are on those Raspberry Pis. So this is one of the reasons why I've been playing around with the ARM processors, because I saw this stuff was coming down the pike.
Thank you.
Bill, ARM stands for Advanced Risk Machine,
Thank you.
if it matters. Just funny.
And AMD stands for Advanced Micro Devices, AMD, Advanced Micro Devices. Anybody else with a question? Kathleen Wassernich, if you, oh, you were so much smarter than the rest of us. She's lounging on her couch instead of sitting in front. You got to unmute yourself, dear. There we go.
You know, most of my stuff is pretty old. So is it that I'm going to have to start looking at investing in a new iMac, a laptop, an iPad?
How old
Okay.
are they?
Well, first of all, your iPad already has Apple Silicon running it. Your
Even
iPhone already
2017?
has Apple Silicon running it.
Just your Macs.
So it's only the Macintoshes that are getting these new, a newer refresh. They're going to be running the same sort of chip that the iPad and the iPod and the iPhone were already running. I don't remember how old your iMac is.
This is 2011.
Yeah, well, that's it as far as updates.
Okay. So this would be something where you might consider whether you want to make that switch to a laptop instead of an iMac, you know, buy a MacBook Pro or a MacBook or a MacBook Air. Or if you really like the large screen, you might think about going to a newer iMac when they
So
come
what do I
out.
do with my old one, though?
You can still sell those. There's a market for them.
Oh, fair enough.
Okay, Rick's
The
going
problem-
to slap me down for this,
Thank
but
you.
when I finish putting my new iMac in, my iMac 2011 is going to get Linux put on it. And I can probably get another 5 to 10 years of use out of it. Linux is a different operating system than Mac OS.
And that'd be fine with me. So.
Oh, okay.
Or you buy a
Find my
Mac
Linux
Mini
user group.
and you use the 2011 as the external display.
Yeah, you can do that too.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, unmute yourself, please. Excuse me, mute yourself. Okay.
What you're going to run into with your older machines is once they stop being updated as the 2011, 2012 and older, when you get on the internet, probably a year from now, you're going to have trouble because of they keep updating the language and the HTML and all that stuff. And you're going to have trouble getting any kind of, continuity because the browser you're using is so old, it's not compatible with the new browsers.
But the only thing about that is there may be another year of support for those old operating systems. I mean, they don't usually cut off all the updates. Security updates will probably continue for a while, but there will be a time. If it's a year away or 2 years away, there will be a time when it'll cut off.
As long as,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Bill.
So long as Apple's updating the software, you're going to be okay. But once they quit updating the operating system, then it's time to start looking at new machines because it's just going to you know, the new stuff is going to be so farther apart from the old stuff that you're going to have trouble just even, you know, surfing the internet.
Unless you do what Bill's doing.
Now, if you're using it for, you change the operating system, or if you're just using, you know, older versions of software that are working fine, keep it going. But, you know, once they quit updating the operating system, that's where you're going to start having trouble.
So what Bill is saying is, for example, I have an Imac sitting downstairs that I use for various things. It's a G5 powered PC iMac. It's the very last iMac they came out with before they went Intel. I really can't do any web browsing with it because the web browsers just don't work. But I've got Office on it. I've got some accounting software on it. I run it old style. It's not connected to the internet. It's connected to my network, but I don't try and do any internet stuff on it. I use it as sort of my more secure box for doing things that I want to keep confidential. Because one of the problems I run into, I don't know if the rest of you have this, is I get confused about where my data is getting stored. So I'll have something that's on my desktop. I thought it was being stored on my local computer, but oh no, it's up in iCloud Drive. And some of the stuff I work with, I have to keep confidential. So for that stuff, I use older machines that don't connect to the internet. Okay, any other questions about the presentation?
Lenore.
Lenore wants a second bite of the apple.
Oh, as we update our equipment, do you guys still offer help in scrubbing the old ones so that we can make them suitable for sale?
The answer right now is yes. And once I finish clearing off some stuff in my garage, I'll be able to start recycling computers again. Okay. But I've got like 10 machines sitting in my garage that I got to get done and out of here before I can take anything else in.
My understanding is that when I go through what I think is sufficient, I'm probably still leaving traces. So yes. Instead of taking advantage of all your expertise, maybe at some point it might be helpful to try to teach us how to scrub our machines adequately.
What I recently did was I had a Zoom session with a member where we're talking like this one-to-one, and I'm able to take control of his screen. He's able to take control of my screen if I give permission, if he gives permission. And so what I did was, as I'm watching, I was so proud of myself. It was like senior management. I'm telling him how to hold his mouse, what to click on, move this, move that. So I walked him through the process.
Okay.
Without me having to do it and him to, bring the machine to me. If you're recycling, it makes sense to bring the machine to me. Okay. But if you're going to resell it, it doesn't make sense to bring it to me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
What happens when you clean your own hard drive? You just erased it. All you're doing is erasing the directory and not the files. So somebody could go in and get that information. It needs to be a deep scrub to completely erase everything and make that drive as bare as possible.
There's also the thing that people forget about, and that is to go into their iCloud account and to remove that machine from their Apple ID. So that's in terms of your iTunes content, anything you bought through the Apple Store in the way of applications or books or movies or TV. I mean, they're selling everything right now except for shoes. They don't sell shoes. And it's important that you tell your Apple account that that machine is no longer, you know, one of yours and it should be removed. Same thing when you're doing your iPhone or your iPad. If you're going to sell it to somebody, you want to make sure that it's removed from your iCloud account and that it's been put to factory, you know, reset to factory defaults. What are you doing, Mark Georges?
Taking a picture.
Oh, okay. I couldn't tell if that was a protest sign or what.
Sorry.
Anybody else have a question?
I've got 2 screens full, so I can't get everybody's picture in one picture.
Are you running 2 screens?
No, I'm running 3 screens, but
Oh, I see. Oh, okay.
on my iMac.
Oh, I
can't
see.
Everybody in here. I got to switch screens.
Okay, I thought we had a lot smaller group of people. I see Elton made it. Good.
Yeah.
Peter, Dick Kugler, Candy, Guillermo.
I don't know. Is there a way to make the icon smaller?
I don't know.
I thought there was, but
Where's our Zoom expert, Rick Cartwright?
unmute yourself, Rick.
I think you can do it. I'm looking.
There you go.
Okay.
I'm checking the preferences.
Now, what size screen are you on, Mark? Are you on a 27-inch or a 21?
27.
Okay, I'm on a 21, and I've got 2 different screens full of people.
I've heard on the 27 that you can do up to 49, but I don't know if you have to change resolution.
Okay.
Well, I'm at the highest resolution that this thing will run right now. But Zoom is actually, if I want to see everybody, I've got the left and right arrows. You know, I got a
Are you on the new one, Mark, or are you on the old one?
new one.
I wondered, I think they're right. They did improve that webcam. You seem to be clearer than you were in the past.
Okay. It's supposed to be HD, you know, I mean, 1080.
Okay, what if I enter full screen and I say come out of gallery view? No, I still got 2 screens.
Yeah, I tried that too and it didn't work.
Okay. I'm moving right along. Anybody else? Going once, going twice? No other question about the presentation? Okay, well, I'm just going to add one other thing. Oh,
John's waving.
Scott Coe again. Unmute yourself, John.
Okay, well, I guess sometime without boring everybody else, that Bill or Mark or Rick, I'd like to talk to you guys about helping me maybe Bill Howe as well to lay out some sort of a plan for the next several months or whatever as to what I might want to think about buying or doing. There was some really good ideas there in terms about switching. But right now, I think my head is too full of facts to try and come to any quick answer here. And go into the Apple store to look for help right now sounds like a problematic sort of a situation as well. So,
John, if I came out, are you going to make me trim brush again?
no.
Okay.
Brush.
Hey,
Okay.
Bill,
Yes, ma'am. Sir, whoever.
Bill,
Go ahead, George.
I have a question. With the new processors, will I then lose access to all of my old stuff? You know,
We're talking data or programs?
well, sometimes they go hand in hand. You have to have a program to get to your data.
Okay. For a limited period of time, you're going to have access to Rosetta 2. And that Rosetta software will allow your current programs to run on the new Apple Silicon. Okay, so it's one of these things where you've got time for the software developers to catch up and come out with their newer versions of their applications. From a practical standpoint, when Apple made the move from PowerPC to Intel, they said that you were going to have a 2-year period where Rosetta was going to be able to handle this. They made it about 18 months before they pulled the plug on Rosetta being available. And it was the operating system came out that no longer had Rosetta in it. So it's one of these things, they're forcing you to move to newer software and newer hardware if you buy the new hardware.
Well, should I use the Rosetta to convert my old, can I convert my old data to the new format so that when Rosetta goes away?
What kind of data are we talking about?
Oh, you know, some numbers.
So we're talking like spreadsheets?
Spreadsheets.
Are you currently using Excel?
Excel and numbers. I try to mostly use numbers.
Okay, now numbers you don't have to worry about because that's an Apple program, and when you get your Big Sur, it's going to have numbers in it, and it's going to run on Silicon, Apple Silicon. It's going to run on Intel, so you don't have to worry about that. With Excel, Microsoft already has a version of Office that runs on Apple Silicon.
Okay.
See, Microsoft, I don't worry about. Microsoft sells this tablet called the Surface.
Yeah.
That runs using Qualcomm ARM processors. So they know how to program for ARM architecture. So it's just that different flavor that Apple does that they have to get accustomed to. And they've already done that.
Yeah, okay.
They already got it going. So in your particular instance, if we're talking numbers, we're talking spreadsheets, we're talking Excel, you don't have to worry.
Okay. Okay, well, that's majority.
And again, we got that 18-month to 2-year window. So when we have this conversation at the end of 2021, I hope it's a better year than 2020. You know, at that point, then we can have a discussion, you know, as to, you know, what your choices are.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I want to make sure that I'm not creating any anxiety among the membership. We got plenty of time to watch Apple figure this stuff out, and we've got plenty of time for our decisions. It's only when you've got something specific like tax software that you sort of have to, you know, worry about, hey, I need to get something in place before tax season again.
Well, you know, tax season has been mentioned several times, and I'm an old fuddy-duddy when it comes to taxes. I have refused to use the tax software. In fact, remember some meetings back, I won a copy and didn't even take it, okay? So, I use numbers. Yeah. I use numbers for my tax information and make up little spreadsheets. And, you know, it seems to work just fine for me.
Yeah.
Now,
so
my taxes aren't terribly complicated. All right. I'm trying, I believe in the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. But,
so you got your abacus and your slide rule and you got numbers, so you're all good.
Yeah. One of my slide rules is circular. Remember circular slide rule?
Yeah.
I remember that.
Whiz wheels.
I remember being stopped on the street by a cop because he thought I was carrying a sword at my side. It was one of those aluminum. Oh, geez.
Oh.
We're the only generation that even knows what a slide rule is.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill.
Stop me on my way to the Technological Institute at Northwestern. Oh, hey.
Bill?
I see Mark Georges is showing us an example of
It's an aviation slide rule. It's a whiz
Yeah.
wheel.
Computing devices. You don't
Hey.
have to worry about rebooting those things. All you have to worry about is, did the metal get too hot where
I got a plastic one too.
Elton has something, I think.
Hey, Bill?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is
Yeah,
that an EA6B?
Yes.
Elton's up next.
Okay, Elton?
Yeah, Bill, the way you're talking, it sounds like you've already done the presentation on the new switch over from Intel to, what is it, ARM, whatever.
Yeah.
I thought that presentation normally happens from 11 to 12, and I didn't get on till 11, so I've totally missed your presentation.
Good news for you. It's all recorded and it'll all be available to rewatch at your pleasure.
Where do I watch it?
YouTube.
It's coming.
And the other one is, we'll also send a copy of the presentation out to you via email.
Oh, good. So it's coming to me in email.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll have a link. You'll be able to watch the presentation. It's all recorded.
Okay, and for those of you who came in later, not next week, but the following week, I'm going to try an experiment. I haven't decided which day of the week it is, but I'm going to basically have a Zoom meeting during the middle of the day, probably near lunchtime, and it's going to be free forum, open question. People can just pop in. Think of it like faculty office hours. You know, you're just popping into my office and you're saying, what the heck are you doing to us with this homework you're giving us? You're giving us too much homework. And then I can explain that it's for your good and it'll build work skills. Okay. So, and I'll make sure, Elton, I'll make sure I send you an email ahead of time so that if you want to have a one-on-one with me, we can do it.
Are you going to, in future Zoom meetings, change your format around like you just did today and have the presentation first with questions and technical stuff later? Or are you going to put it the way it used to be with the technical stuff first and then the presentation?
We actually did start with the technical stuff first.
Yeah, we had it just like before.
Well, no, at 11 o'clock, you were done with the presentation. Normally you start at 11 o'clock with the presentation.
We didn't have a raffle or a for sale wanted section.
Or a bathroom break.
So what I'll do, well, let's see. Rick, are you presenting next month or am I doing another one? I think I got you double teamed, I think.
And we'll figure it out. We haven't talked about it, but we'll figure it out.
But maybe what we'll do is we'll send out a timeline of how we're going to do the stuff, an actual agenda on the meeting announcement.
Good. If we have a live meeting next month.
Good.
Oh, one other thing I want to make sure, since, again, for latecomers, there seemed to be confusion about what the passcode is for the Zoom meetings or what the Zoom meeting ID is. On the TMG website, on that first meeting page where it shows meeting information, we're going to have the meeting ID and the passcode up there. So even if you get a confusing email from myself or someone else, you can always go to the website to get the correct information.
Bill, don't you also send the meeting video to YouTube?
Correct. Correct.
And you can get to that from our webpage.
Or you, right?
How do we?
No, I don't send it out. You get to it from our webpage.
Yeah, you've got a link that they click on and it takes them?
It takes them to YouTube, and there's icons up there for all of our past meetings. They just select the one they want.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like we need to refresh our documentation for members on how to get to services, because we've increased the number of services we do, and we've changed how we provide service.
Well, just go to our webpage and click around.
Yeah.
Hey, before we close the meeting, can I interject something?
Absolutely.
Okay, I've been using Zoom on an iPhone. I've driven from Lebanon to Germantown, and I'm back through Springboro now. I've been into a store, and it's worked flawlessly.
Cool.
So just a heads up that, you know, if you aren't going to be at home and can't use your computer, use your iPhone and log in, and it works just the same as if you're at home. And you know, I don't know what my audio sounds like, but everybody else sounds good, and I can hear and see everybody. So just a heads up for that in case you need to do that.
Does that eat into your gigabytes?
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Get a $50 data bill.
Yeah, well, I didn't try you dialing the phone number. I'm not sure how that works. And that way, if you've got unlimited calling, then all that data should stream through there.
Yeah.
Through the cell system. But I just want to let you know that it is working flawlessly, and the iOS does work well.
So
just make sure you're updated.
One last thing I want to repeat for those who might have come into the meeting a little bit later on. I have been doing virtual site visits with members, and I've been using a software product called No Machine, another one that's from Apple called FaceTime, and the last but not least, I've been using Zoom to virtually talk to the person and to connect and control their computer. In some cases, I've had them move the mouse around and I've told them what to do. Always gives me that sense of overwhelming power over others. And,
oh, great Lord.
And in some cases where they wanted to just watch, they let me take control of their computer where I was able to fix some problems.